On this episode, we are going to discuss how to increase your conversion rates on your front-end products and high-ticket solutions with something called CCom. I'm Devin Herz. Welcome to this week's DMC Marketing Nugget. Are you ready to break through the glass ceiling and generate an extra 6 to 7 figures in your business? If so, join us today as we have special guest, founder of Amplify C-Com, Paul Ace, joining us all the way from the UK. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Devin. Great to be on the show and give some value to your audience.
We're excited to have you here. I know you got a lot of great things going on in your business. And as a marketing person, we love learning new tricks of the trade, what's going on, what's working. Things are changing all the time. So we're glad to have you here. So how did you get started in this line of marketing, Paul?
Yeah, well, I actually used to be a wedding singer. So, that natural progression from wedding singing to marketing. And I just started marketing my own stuff online, trying to figure out, the whole online game, and then came into this conversational commercing a little bit more when we started up a bridesmaids dress business off the back of the wedding singing business. And I started learning about these messenger bots. I started learning about SMS, and then how could we create this amazing customer experience through the whole journey? And one of the things that I learned was, for example, when someone abandon the cart, well, what if we called every single abandoned cart? Which sounds a bit crazy to do, but we called every single one, and we created automations that meant I got notified straight away as soon as someone abandoned the cart. And then I had this script that I went through. I could fill in this little form, and then by the end of it, we'd close about 20, 30, maybe sometimes even 40% of those abandoned carts, because by the end of it, you find out why they didn't buy, built rapport with them, and then finally, thank you very much for your time. So then what I'd do at the end of it, I'd say, I've got this discount code for you to say thank you. And then I'd guide them through the sales process and actually get them to buy while I was still on the phone with them. And then I realized, well, that's actually, these things are quite helpful. And then I learned it for other things. For example, like when someone placed an order, I record them a personal video message, even when they ordered a sample of the fabric. Okay. And because I created this level of service and this level of automation and conversation going on all the time, then it meant we were able to scale a lot faster and reduce our cost per acquisition, which is what everyone's looking for, right? And then I started applying that to other businesses, and then I realized this works really, really well when you start applying it to online marketing, coaching, consulting, and things like that. And then we started working with 7-figure businesses, and it's just gone from there.
Nice. Well, I'm definitely excited to dive in, as some of the results that you've generated have been phenomenal with your CCom concept. So let's kick things off here and explain to us the meaning of CCom.
Sure. So CCom stands for conversational commerce. And the reason we call it CCom is because over time, people get lazy, right? People don't go, oh, have you been on an electronic commerce site? They say, oh, I'm in ecom. So everyone's going to be calling it CCom in a few years' time. So we thought, let's just get ahead of the curve. And conversational commerce and CCom is all about creating this hybrid between having conversation with your customers and at the same time automating some of that to create a human-like customer experience. So automating the start of the conversation like you would normally have a conversation, and then handing over to humans at the right point of the conversation to finish that sale off. So it's that hybrid between human-like and human experience. And that's where, and I know we're going to talk about this in a short while, but the 80-20 rule, right? So that's where that 80-20 rule comes from.
Okay, so yeah, we've all heard of the 80-20 rule. I think in this instance is maybe a little bit different because you're talking about applying this to automation, correct?
Yeah, so 80% of the results come from 20% of the actions. So we were like, how do we breed conversation with as many prospects as possible to find out a feedback loop from those customers? Because the more you're getting feedback from the customers and using their language patterns in your marketing, the more you're using the exact words that they're saying, the more sales you're going to close and the higher conversion rates are going to be. Sure. So we were like, well, we haven't got time for, just think of the cost involved with someone literally speaking to every single person when you've maybe got 1,000 leads coming in every day. So we're like, well, what can we do? Well, what would we say if we were going to do that? And then how can we automate that? So not going, I'll give you an example. Like if someone abandons a cart at checkout, what do you usually get? Like, you've probably been on some stores before and it's like, hey, you left items in your cart. You're like, yeah, yeah, I did, because I know I did. So, and then they go back and finish your cart, and that's it. There's no conversation there. There's no building of rapport. So what we look at doing is going, well, how can we actually start a conversation at that point? So our first message will be something like, hey, I noticed you started getting this and you didn't finish. I just wondered, did something break or did something go wrong? Can you just let me know? I'll get it fixed ASAP. And we've had as high as a 40% response rate on that message. We've used it across SMS, Messenger, we've used it on email. And when you use that message, then what you can do is take that information, put it into a Google Sheet, have the customer support person put it into Google Sheet. Then you've got all these responses of all the reasons why people didn't buy. So instead of putting your finger in the air and guessing and going, oh, I think this is why people didn't buy, just ask people. So what happens is then you can hand over to the human side of things to answer that specific objection. But then you're like, well, that still takes a lot of time. So, well, what if we could automate part of that by going, well, let's take a set of templates, right? That when we say that in that particular way to that particular person, then that gets the result that we want. So then we look at going, okay, well, let's use these message templates. And then they have to press 2 buttons as opposed to press it like typing out this whole message every time. Sure. And then, well, how can we take that even further with the 80-20 rule? So 80% of the results from 20% of the actions. Well, what if we handled every one of those objections in the retargeting? So what if we had retargeting ads that handled every one of those objections with the exact language patterns that your customers are using? And what if we had emails that follow up with a story in each one of a testimonial that answers that objection? So what we do is when we go into business, we take that, and then we start creating these objection handling sequences afterwards based off the testimonials that we've already been given.
And that makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, you're actually finding out what's going on with the client. You're able to get those objections out in the open and then answer any questions that they have. And then you're able to automate it. Now, in some of the podcasts that I've listened to that you've spoken, you mentioned embedded commands. What are they and why are they so powerful in marketing?
Yes, so embedded commands are massive. And you may already be thinking, Devin, right now, what is an embedded command? How can I use it in my business? And what is that going to do for me? Now, I just did like 2 or 3 embedded commands in there because I started to pre-frame in your mind what you were thinking, right? So you might be thinking right now in your mind, and what are you doing now? You're going, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What's
so
embedded? Yeah. Tell me.
And now you want to know that more. And at the same time, even if you weren't thinking about that to start off with, now I've got you thinking down that direction. So that's one way of using embedded commands. So you may be thinking, perhaps as you start to notice this, perhaps you're going to start noticing this right now. And then they're like, yeah, I am noticing that right now. So it's actually kind of like using hypnotic language patterns. So those same kind of things, but you can use that in conversation without it feeling like hypnosis or some kind of woo-woo. Right, because we just had that conversation there, and I said that to you, and you didn't go, "Are you doing something weird to me, Paul?" Now you just went, "Yeah, I want to know that as well." So the more you start using that in the conversation, the language patterns, the more you can create an image in someone's mind. And for example, I was writing some copy today for someone for a video sales letter, and I was like, I don't know what it is for you, but you may be thinking right now about what it would be like when you're putting those Mickey Mouse ears on and you're skipping down the street to Disneyland on Main Street, looking at everything around, because you know now where you are, that you're able to go and do that. And you look around and you go, that's because I did this. And then, so what you've done, you've created a picture in the person's mind. You may be thinking that, you may not. You're not going, think of this right now, because that doesn't work. And here's the other magical thing about using the language patterns is the words don't and no. So the brain does not recognize the words don't. So for example, Devin, don't, whatever you do right now, I don't want you to think about a pink elephant in the corner of the room with roller skates on. Devin, what are you thinking of right now?
Of course, I'm seeing that pink elephant with roller skates on. You're pretty good at this.
I just told you not to think of it. I said don't think of it, right? So
Yeah,
it's
right.
where a lot of people make mistakes in copy, and when they're writing these conversational experiences, is they use things like "don't miss out." It's like one of the worst things you can write in copy. Don't forget. What have you just told everyone to do? Don't be
To
late.
forget.
Yeah.
Be late.
So,
Yeah.
so for example, let's say you've got a webinar, right?
Okay.
So many people in the copy, they say, don't be late. Don't be late to the webinar. What does everyone do? I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around, remember to be on time. Because,
Totally different mind. Yeah, totally different mind pattern when you say that.
exactly. Because, and Tony Robbins says it best, where focus goes, energy flows. So wherever you put the focus of that conversation, that's where the mind's going to head.
Okay.
And so something else around those language patterns, it's not so much of an embedded command, but you can also ask for a no. And I learned this from Chris Voss in the book Never Split the Difference.
Okay.
And so instead of, it's really hard sometimes to get someone to say yes. Okay, so if I'm like, if I said to you originally, and I reckon we may even done this in the outreach to you, Devin, about being on the podcast to start off with. So what it may be like, instead of going, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast, right? That's one angle. And you're like, oh God, everyone's always asking to be on my podcast. But if I switched it the other way and said, would it be a crazy idea for you to consider us being on your podcast? No, it wouldn't be a crazy idea. Right. Okay, cool. Should we do it then? Right. So when you're asked for the no instead of the yes, the compliance rate then starts to go up. And you can use those same kind of language patterns if someone's not responding to you. So let's say you've had a client, they've gone through the sales process and not got to the end. They've said, hey, I want to go ahead. And then they've just gone silent. You know, we've all had one of those that have just gone completely silent.
Oh,
and then you might send an email that just says, have you gave up on this?
Yeah.
Nothing else. Hey, just wanted to check if you gave up on the idea of us working together. No, I haven't. Oh, okay, cool. So what's holding you back right now? But if you said, hey, are you ready to get started? No, I'm not. Okay, so it's using those language patterns all the time to guide people through the sales process.
I think those are incredible nuggets right there that could be used across all different things, whether it's conversation and your direct response copy. I know my team, we always try to position ourselves as like, how can we tell that story, right? Storytelling is becoming such a big buzzword. We see these words pop up in marketing and they have like a good shelf life of a good year or so, and then they kind of get a little numb to them. But storytelling is really what it's about. I think that'll be something that continues in the future as well, because people want to understand what you've gone through, how should they relate to you. So the way that you're talking about doing it is just tweaking some language there that immediately gets a response that you're probably wanting to hear. So I love that. I will probably take some of those and put those to use right away in some of our topics and sales conversations. So those are great. Now, conversational commerce to sell the high ticket solutions. How do you really harness the power of that, and how do you use it to sell?
Yeah, so when I spoke before about what we did with the bridesmaids dresses, I was like, well, how can we apply the same kind of principle to high ticket programs? So one of the things that we looked at was, well, what if we broke down every single pipeline stage to understand exactly where people are dropping off in the journey, or not always dropping off, but getting stuck, right? So just imagine it like you're a plumber, and the water's running through the pipe, and then at some point you just like, it seems to keep getting stuck there. I'm not sure what's going on there, but there must be some kind of blockage. So we looked at, well, how can we apply conversational commerce there? So it's usually because someone's got an objection that they haven't overcome, or they need more personal touch. They need that hand holding and that confidence of like, okay, you're a real business, I can trust you, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're selling a product for like $27, $37, great. Just flick up an order page, happy days, and with the right kind of video and messaging, yeah, you can sell those kind of things. When it comes to like selling a $5,000, a $10,000, maybe a $25,000, there needs to be some more of a rapport built there. Now, does that have to be with the owner? Not necessarily. So what we look at is how can we create multiple touch points at every stage of the customer journey? So when it gets to the end of that customer journey, when it gets to the point where we're like, hey, now it's time to invest in yourself, and it's a 5K or 10K, then they're already so pre-framed and so much rapport has been built that they're naturally going to take the next step. Or then if there is a blockage, for example, let's say someone has paid $497 for a deposit, but hasn't paid for the 5K product. Well, what do you do with those people, right? So you might have, let's say you've got 10 people a day that have gone and paid a deposit and not paid the remainder, and they just got stuck in there. Now, some people won't even notice that they're there because they haven't created the pipeline stages to say why people are getting stuck. So that's stage number one. Stage number two is to go, well, what could we do to create a personal touch at that point to get people over the line? So, for example, the owner could go and do a personal video message to each single person on that list who has got stuck at that stage. Now, let's say that's 10 people a day, right? It's 10 people a day, 30-second video. That's taken that owner 5 minutes per day. If that closes one out of those 10 people, that's $10,000.
Yeah.
So 5 minutes work, $10,000. Would you do that every day? Would you spend 5 minutes a day to make $10,000?
I think anyone out there would take advantage of that. Absolutely.
Right, and unless you're worth more than 60, yeah, unless you're worth more, what, $120,000 an hour? If you're worth more than 120,000, yeah, and there's not going to be that many of those people listening, right? So that is the principle behind it. Is understand there's a trifecta: psychology, technology, and dataology. One does not work without the other. You can have the perfect psychology, you can understand the customer, you can use their language patterns, but if you haven't got the right technology, you can't scale that because you're doing everything one-on-one. You can have the best technology, but if you've not got the right messaging and the right psychology, then the technology is pointless. And then you can have the right technology and the right psychology, but if you don't understand where people are dropping off and where to put your focus and your attention on and what improvement that's making by taking those actions, then you're not going to get anywhere either. So that's why you need the right dataology as well. And then you can have the right data, but if you don't have the right psychology and technology, then nothing works. So you have to have the trifecta of the three all the time.
Right. And I think listening to this is like, okay, how do I analyze this? And I would say as a business owner, it's very hard to analyze your own business and see all these analytics while you're trying to run your business. So teaming up with an outsourced marketing team, people like yourself, that's where some of that automation really comes into play. It's going to save you time, save you energy. It's going to get details that your team or you may have never even gotten, and that's going to help drive things forward for you. So I think those are all amazing tips. And now you have a way that you're tying in the software, text messaging, and really harnessing the power of all that all in one to help a client out, right?
Yeah, and so for example, recently we had a client that had done a live challenge, and off the back of that challenge, he got people to apply for the high ticket program. Okay. Now there was a percentage of those people. I think it was around 1,000 people that hadn't applied for the high ticket program. They hadn't shown any interest at all. They hadn't raised a hand and said, "Hey, yeah, I want this." So we were like, "Let us have that list, and let's see what we can do with it." So we took that list, we put it in an SMS message. We sent them an SMS message that got them to raise their hand to say, would you be interested in this thing? So we approached them on a different medium. From that, we got around a 20% response rate off the back of it. Bear in mind, these people hadn't applied for anything, right? So they were dead leads, if not. We made $75,000 in extra revenue over SMS, no phone calls. Wow. Just by having a back and forth conversation over SMS, just going, hey, would you like this thing? Yeah, great. What are your desires? And what are your pains? What have you tried already that's not worked? Great. It sounds like it could be a good fit. Here's the link to go and buy it. It's a little bit more complex than that, but that's the simple version of it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love hearing that. And I think the use of text messaging, and when we all live on our cell phones, right? So to be able to hit them right in their hands, that's awesome. And something that people should consider, because you definitely get inundated everywhere else. Might as well hit them on their cell phone as well and add that to the marketing mix. So I know you started off, you said, as a wedding singer of all things.
Yeah.
So as you've gone through your business and grown your business, what would be one thing that you may have done differently, or one bonus nugget that you want to share with business owners and salespeople out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I was to revisit some of the businesses that I've been in before, is one of the big things is know your numbers, because
Okay.
I didn't know my numbers when I was doing the bridesmaids dress business. I didn't know our return policy correctly. So we had a 90-day return policy, but I was working out, like, just to get your head around this, you might do, you might not, but I was working out the number based on that month's sales. So I was looking at a return rate and saying it was 12%. But in fact, when the sale had occurred and the refund then went through, it was actually 30% return rate. So what was happening is the more we were scaling, the more the returns were coming back. And then I basically built this self-fulfilling monster of things where we were putting money in and we were getting this money in, and then more money was coming out. And then as we scaled more, then more money was coming out. And then by the time we realized, we had $25,000 come back in 2 months. And we were working month to month cash flow. One of the biggest things that I learned after that was having buckets. So we have now personally, I have my operating expenses account. I have a fund bucket. I have an investment bucket, a savings bucket. Everything gets segmented every single month in the business and also personal. So by doing that, you never run out of money because everything's segmented. So that was, like, for me, a massive thing. That's why one of our core values is numbers. So we have, our core values are we ripen. So wow, effectiveness, responsibility, innovation, personal growth, excellence, and numbers. They are all based off the previous failures that we've had in the past. And we went, okay, well, when we do all these things, things work.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've said this in a handful of episodes. We learn from our mistakes, so that's why we're doing this show too, right? Because we can educate people, we can give them the ups and downs that we've been through, provide advice, and build authority at the same time. So I think all the information there was phenomenal. So if anyone out there is ready to increase their conversion rates, how should they get a hold of you, Paul?
Sure. So you can go to amplifyccom.com, and there is a 7-figure audit on there. So this is the exact process that we go through with 7-figure businesses when we first go and look at their whole system, their whole process, and all the key points that are in there. So you can get access to the exact thing that we run through, that we charge people thousands of dollars to go through. You can get access for that absolutely free on amplifyccom.com.
Really appreciate you doing that for all of our guests. Thank you again for the great nuggets that you provided. Definitely look forward to staying in touch and continuing our journey together and seeing how we can put our heads together on some of our marketing initiatives for us and our clients. So thanks for being here, Paul. It's been great.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the show as well, Devin. Have a great day.
You as well. So be sure to share, like, and subscribe for more DMC Marketing Nuggets, and visit dmcmarketingnugget.com to view all of our past episodes. Here's to your success.